Hey guys, Mark here. Little video about upgrades. Now, there's lots of upgrades you can do to the belt CP. I'm not a big fan of upgrading my helicopters, like over modifying them, I should say. Uh, and especially the belt CP is a perfect example of that. There's a lot of room for improvement on this helicopter, uh, and I mean a lot of room for improvement. But in its stock form, it really is a very good, capable helicopter. But however, there are a couple things that no matter what, I think you should upgrade. So starting from the beginning, the very first one, 25 amp ESky ESC. Originally, I thought they improved these, but after many reports, they are still catching on fire. So the very first thing you should do is upgrade the speed controller to something over 30 amps. Now I have a 40 amp Exceed RC speed controller, and when you buy a new speed controller, I usually recommend people to get one that you can program with a program card. You can program your speed controllers through your transmitter, but it's infinitely easier to have the program card. These things are cheap. Just make sure you buy a speed controller that can be programmed by the program card. Now another thing, when you buy new speed controllers, you can see here, they come with new, well, bigger connectors. So what happens is a lot of times you're going to have to solder new connectors to match these, but you'll solder new connectors on the motor of the helicopter. Now you could just try to transfer these connectors over to your new speed controller, but it's just going to be a lot easier if you just put new 3.5mm bullet connectors on your motor. But speed controller, that's the very first thing I think you should upgrade. The next thing, the blades. Now, I like the wood blades. They're very light, and because of that, it gives a good performance. They don't survive crashes, so pretty much anytime you hit the ground with wood blades, they're done. So in the beginning, you're going to be better off with some kind of a plastic or carbon fiber blade, but you may choose to stick with the woodies like I do, because they're cheap. Now, the one thing, the ESky blades, they suck. They work, but just my opinion, they suck. So, and the ESky blades, these are 315mm blades. Now, I think you should upgrade to new blades, something better, and usually you can go, a lot of 450s run 300 and 25mm blades versus the ESky 315s. You can see here the difference in the size. Now, my favorite wood blades are the Align 325 Pros. They're cheap, and I've had such great luck with these blades. They work great. It flies awesome. And by far, these are my favorite blades for 450 size helicopters. Again, just my personal preference on blade, but I definitely think you should upgrade the blade to something beyond the ESky blade. And the third upgrade that I think you should do is the gyro. Now, the ESky gyro, it works, doesn't work bad, but it doesn't work good. So, the third thing I think you should upgrade is the gyro. Get some kind of better head-holding gyro. My personal favorite is the Teleby head-holding gyro. These things work great, and they work on like everything. I've used this on my Honeybee King, on my ES500, and even my ES600. I've talked to other people that have used these on T-Rex 600s. So these are a very versatile gyro, but they're only meant for basic flight. They don't hold up to 3D, but they're cheap, and that's my favorite. So this is going to be the third thing I think you should upgrade is the head-holding gyro. So now I'm going to go ahead and show you a couple things about installing this stuff. Okay, starting off with the blades. Installing blades, you take it off, you put it back on, really simple. The one thing I did want to tell you about is the blades. Most 325mm blades, the root of them is skinnier than the one used for the belt CP. So a lot of times you're going to end up having to use some kind of a washer and, some spacer or something like that. And after you install it, you should just go through and verify your pitch that you've got 0 degrees at mid-stick and all that stuff. Go through the process of tracking your blades again. And if you're using better blades, they should track a lot better than the ESky ones. And that's why I use these. Moving on. Okay, the speed controller. As I mentioned, it comes with new bullet connectors, so you are going to have to solder new ones on the motor. or try to transfer the original ones over to the new speed controller. But I think it's by far easier to put new ones on the existing motor. So what I do is I just take it out with the motor plate, and you can see here that I've got the 2 bolts. And what it is, there's 4 bolts, 2 on each side. You go ahead, unscrew them, and it's going to be best to kind of take some kind of a screwdriver, but you can go down and just kind of pop it up and then slide the whole plate up and out. Do avoid pulling up on this. Don't pull up on the can. Don't push up on the bottom of the pinion, because you'll take the chance of breaking your motor. But after you get it out, then you can go ahead and solder new connectors on here. First thing I do, go ahead and strip off the original heat shrink, and then you can see here, try not to cut through the original sheathing there like I did. But it was good because I wanted to show you, before you can solder, or solder, probably you people are going to start complaining about that. Before you solder on the connector, you need to make sure that your wire here is filled up full of solder. So what you would do is, if it wasn't, you would just heat up the tip of it until the wire got hot, and then slowly feed some solder into the wire, and the wire will just soak up the solder, so that way you get it nice and filled. But then what I do is I take my little connector, take a pair of needle nose, and prop it up, and then just take my solder. I've just got 30-watt soldering iron, which has seen better days, and some 6040, what is this, lead tin solder. So, and I just heat up the connector, and it'll get hot, and then you can start melting the solder in the bottom of it. There it goes. I just fill it full. You don't want to overfill it. And then I just dunk this while it's still hot. Just dunk in there, hold it. Make sure you hold it until it hardens. Don't move it around until after it's nice and fully hardened. So there we go. Got it soldered on there. So now, make sure you got some new heat shrink. And that's as simple as you put it right over the top, and then you can just shrink it down with the soldering iron, actually. Get it positioned in there just right. I usually use my lighter, but and there we go. So now I'll do the same thing to the other 2, and then I'll go ahead and reinstall my motor, and I'll be good to go. Okay, and one other thing I wanted to mention to you about putting your motor back in. You can see here that the holes here, they're elongated, and that's because you can actually slide the whole motor and the motor plate forwards and backwards to adjust the gear pinion mesh. And that is how close that the main gear and the motor pinion are together. Now you want it just close enough that you can rock your main gear forward and backwards without the motor pinion moving. And then I go ahead, what I'll do is I'll install 2 screws, and then slide the motor back and forward and backwards until I get it where I want. Then tighten up those 2 screws, and go ahead and install the screws on the other side.